boys get into the town where the whole crew was under investigation and they was trying to get at all of us. Nah, man. So you know me, and they'll always start from the beginning. So anyway, I remember, I was waiting for platinum when I pulled up on platinum and shit. And I'm supposed to meet up with him so that way we can go to this meeting to meet with Farrago, you know what I'm saying? So platinum, was taking a minute to get to the spot, so I'm hitting Plat on the phone. I'm like, yo, Plat, we can't be messing around. This is our connect, this is our boss. He was running late because he just bought his red Ferrari. You know what I mean? He bought this red Ferrari and shit. So we on the phone and shit. I'm waiting for him. He's like, yo, I'm pulling up now, big bro. So Platinum pulls up, red Ferrari. I just copped this white BMW, red interior, red seats and all that. So we just bought 2 new whips. So I'm like, all right, let's roll. So we rolling, you know what I mean? He following behind me. So we driving. Farrago wanted me and Platinum to pull up at him at this restaurant out in Dallas, and this restaurant/bar. So me and, Platinum, we pull up, park up the cars. We walk in. Farrago sitting in the back, he's at the table. And also sitting at the table was my nigga Flame, Duke Farrell, and Biggest, who was doing security for Farrago, you know what I mean? So Biggest is standing on the side, Farrago sitting at the table, Duke sitting at the table, Flame sitting at the table. Now me and Platinum, we walk in, shake hands, greet everybody, and now we sitting at the table, so we talking and shit. And small talk, at the beginning, everybody, making sure everybody good, everybody strapped up, everybody, talking along, this a little small talk. So we was there for like maybe a good, maybe 5 minutes, we talking and shit. The waitress, she comes over, takes people order, you know what I mean? People, ordering like, whatever they wanted to eat or whatever, you know what I mean? So we chilling at the table for like, a few minutes before we start talking. Next thing you know, the waitress brings this bottle over, this big bottle of champagne. So, and we knew that, the champagne bottles are like $200 a pop. So I'm looking at, so I'm like, Farrago, this must be some good news. You ordering bottles and shit. Like, you just is like a $200 a pop. He said, I ain't order that up to one of your house. Like, nah. So when the waitress come over, I'm like, yo, we didn't order this. And she said, nah, the gentleman over there ordered it for y'all. So that's when I said, gentleman. So I turned around and I seen the vlogger, Armand Wiggins. He holds up his champagne glass like the salute. So I'm like, huh? So did I turn back around? Platinum went to go over. I said, whoa. I said, you know that nigga? He said, nah, but the bottle's free. So I said, hell no. Platinum like, no, but the bottle's free. I said, hell no. So I took the bottle from Platinum. I walked over to where Armand Wiggins was. He was sitting with the dude, but the dude back was facing, us. So I walking up, and then when I get closer to the table, and the dude turns, looks back, it was Ratchet from Ratchet TV. So in the back of my head, I'm like, oh shit. So Ratchet went to say something to me. I said, yo, I was like, I'm good. I don't even want to know my nigga. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I said to Armand Wiggins, I said, yo, no disrespect, but we good, homie. I set the champagne bottle on the table, and Armand said, nah, it's really nothing, man. I'm just, just showing love. And I said, yo, my man, no disrespect, but, we good. So then that's when Ratchet said, yo, he said, it's not what you think, we just sitting here going over the Diddy case. And then that's when I looked at Ratchet, I looked at Armand Wiggins, and then I looked back at Ratchet and I said, and I just shook my head like, yeah, alright. And I just laughed and just walked away. So when I went to sit back down at the table, that's when Farag was said, yo man, he was like, listen, he was like, the reason I brought y'all all here was that, the letter boys are coming after us. So, you know, so Platt, being the youngest, he like letter boys. And then that's when Farag was like, yeah, he was like, the FBI, the DEA, you know what I mean? Dallas PD, the letter boys. So he was like, Operation 214. So that's when I said, what is Operation 214? I'm like, what's that? And then that's when Duke Farrell said 214. It's the area code for Dallas. And then that's when Fuad was like, yeah, he was like, basically, they starting the operation to investigate us, you know what I mean? They feel like we the ones moving the most work in the city, we doing the most, things for us, like selling product, violence, whatever. He said he got word from somebody who he know that works close with, law enforcement, you know what I mean? He's like that he heard that me and Platinum had like a little run-in with Detective Barnes. He was asking, I'm like, so I started thinking, and then that's when Platt said, yeah, the time when Jackie called Detective Barnes when we ran up on Duck. I'm like, oh yeah, I told him that it was nothing. And he said, well, he took an interest in y'all. He wanted to know who y'all are. So now he's hearing word that, they doing an investigation called Operation 214. You know what I mean? And they investigating everybody at this table and the rest of the crew. So he was basically telling us, keep your nose clean. He was like, the spots y'all working at, he was like, y'all might have to shut down for a little while. So I'm like, I said respectfully to the boss, Farrago, I'm like, yo, that's gonna really hurt business. Like, we don't know how long this investigation gonna be. So I said, if it's a way I could come up with a plan, to where we could still make money and, maybe fly under the radar of this investigation, could we do that? He said, yeah. So I was like, alright. So I said, let me think of something, and I'm gonna get back to you, because I was like, I don't think we should shut down, you know what I mean? Because that's gonna hurt our pockets, you know what I mean? We all got mouths to feed, at this table. So Farrago said, cool, but he said, if anything, it falls on you, you know what I mean? I said, I understand that. So that's when, he called the meeting, and that was the end of it. So that's when, me and Platinum shook hands with everybody, and we rolled out. So as we rolled out, we pull up at the spot. So, me and Plat, I'm sitting on, my call. Platinum sitting on his call. We just chilling, we looking over the spot, the block. Your load, trap house or whatever we was working out of, we still got our workers working in there. So I'm thinking of a plan. I'm like, damn, how could we keep shit how it is without having to shut down? I'm like, could it be shut down, nigga? That's gonna fuck our pockets up. Platinum agreed. So I'm like, well, I was like, I'm gonna meet up with the wise man in the morning. So when I talk to the wise man, I'm sure he can come up with a suggestion to where we can keep this shit moving. So Platinum was like, the wise man. I was like, yeah. I was like, so. I shook his hand. I said, so I'm gonna see you tomorrow, my nigga. So that's when I rolled out. Next day, my usual routine, I go to the park, work out, do my pull-ups, push-ups. But it was a guy that I work out with every morning. Older guy, in his late 50s, but he's in like tremendous shape. He's in good shape for like 57 years old. Looked just like C.T. Fletcher, but light-skinned. I called him light, his name was Light Skin Wise. He was also from New York. He used to be a hustler back in the day. I got to know him from going to the park, every morning and working out with him. Once we both found out we both was from New York and Dallas, I'm a hustler. He used to be a hustler. You know what I mean? It was like, he took me under his wing, you know what I mean? He would tell me stories how he used to get money and shit. I told him certain stuff, you know what I mean? So, his name was Wise because, he he was, a 5%er, what I mean, from the 5% nation, and that's, kind of like, like a Muslim, like, but, they only believe in like 5%, that, basically the nation of God's on earth, you know what I mean? Where they believe the black man is God, the black woman and the child is the earth, you know what I mean? So, his name was Wise, so I call him light skin Wise because he was light skinned and he was older, but he was in good shape, like buff, you know what I mean? So, I meet up with Wise, I call him the Wise man. And I told him, well, what we going on that, there's rumors about an investigation and all this other shit, you know what I mean? So he's listening, as we working out, we talking. He said, he kind of went through some shit like that when he was hustling out in Baltimore, when he went from New York to Baltimore to get money, because, it's more money out of town and shit. So he said when he was in Baltimore, what he did was he kept a fish tank by the window, and whenever, like, the cops would come and raid or, or whatever, he'd throw, like, the drugs in the fish tank, pour acid in there, and throw the fish tank out the window. He was like, but you gotta make sure you have a small amount of drugs, like maybe 1 keys, 2 keys, nothing more than that, in a fish tank, and he said, make sure you be able to even lift it, or at least push that motherfucker out the window. And he said when he did that, he was able to beat the case because the evidence was destroyed. So that's when I said, yo, I think I'm gonna do that. So we finished working out, shook hands with the Wise man, and I went on to, with my day. So then that's when I ran the idea through Farrago, met up with him at his club, in the back. Told him, he was like, that sounded like a good idea. So he said he gonna tell the rest of the crew to do that, but he was like, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do that. So basically, he said we only gonna keep 1 or 2 keys at the spot, and we gonna have fish tanks at each spot with acid, you know what I mean? So how I did it was, I had 88 go get the fish tank, right? I had 88, I sent 88 to go buy like 2 fish tanks and some fish, you know what I mean? I told her to get like a medium-sized fish tank, couple fish, you know what I mean? She did that, she bought like, maybe like 3 fish tanks, couple fish, you know what I mean? And I hit off Duke Fell with a fish tank. I kept a fish tank. And we gave, Flame a fish tank, everybody that had a spot, you know what I mean? We had like 3 to 4 spots, so, and I told them, keep 1 or 2 keys at each spot, you know what I mean? So that way, told them about the acid and shit. So once I sent 88 to get the fish tanks and the fish, it was this white girl I knew, this white girl stripper. She was in college. She was like 19, I used to call her Kelly Bundy because she looked like Kelly Bundy and shit, right? So is this white girl stripper, that I was fucking. 19 years old, I sent her to go buy the acid so that way, because not only she's white, but, she's in school, you know what I mean? She just show her college ID so that way they won't suspect nothing. So that's how we was able to, buy the acid and shit, right? So basically, so everybody's ready, you know what I mean? Everybody was still cooking, getting our money, whatever. Now how I know that the boys is really on us was one day, I went to go meet up with Mal 1, because, me and Platinum, we gonna meet up with Mal 1, so that way we can get our cars, fixed up, we just bought cars and shit, so we were taking the Mal 1, here put this system in there, hook it up with rims, and also scan it to make sure there was no tracking device on it, you know what I mean? No low jack and none of that, so I go meet up with Mal 1 at the car shop, because like I said, I just bought the white BMW red interior. I wanted to get a system put in, and Platt wanted to get some rims put on his new joint, his red Ferrari or whatever he just bought. So while I'm at the car shop, Platinum called me. So I pick up the phone, I'm like, my nigga, where you at? You supposed to been here. And he was like, yo, big bro. He was like, I think the boys is on me. I'm like, what you mean? He was like, it's this motherfucking van following me. I don't know, who these niggas is. He's like, I don't know if it's like some Jack boys or some feds. He said, I think it's a fed, though, the way they dress. He was like, every time I turn the corner, they turn the corner. I'm like, what kind of van is it? So he's trying to describe. So he's like, hold on. So now I just hear the car, speeding up. So, Platinum's hitting different corners and shit, trying to shake the van. Boom, he shakes the van. He gets away from him. So now he picks up the phone. He was like, yeah, I think I lost him. I said, yo, man. I was like, it's that red car. That shit is bringing a lot of attention. I said, you might have to park that shit up until, shit, cool down. So he agreed, so he went. He parked that shit up, whatever. So when I hang up with him, Mal 1 said, yo, I need to holler at you, big dog. Have Mal 1 talk. So Mal 1 pulled me to the side. He was like, yeah, he said he heard about not only the investigation, but he heard that me, and Lack then had a couple run-ins and that, how I robbed Lack for the work that he got from on Broadway, and how I ran up in his whole spot, and how, Sexy Trapper shot one of the girls. He was like, yo, he's like, I'm gonna keep a real big dog. He was like, Lack ain't the guy to play with. He said the only reason Lack ain't really coming back at you like that is because a lot of his team was locked up. But he was like, a lot of them niggas is getting out. They done beat their cases. So he was like, if I was you, he said, keep an eye out on Big Lack, because he was like, Big Lack ain't nothing to play with. So I just laughed. I'm like, man, please. You know what I mean? I'm not taking him serious. I'm like, Lack. I'm like, come on, fuck out. He was like, I'm just saying, big dog. Remember what I told you, so I ain't paying it no more. So cool. So then, we still doing our thing, chilling or whatever. Still getting money. Everything's, copacetic, as they say or whatever, right? So we decided to go out to like a little club. So me, Platinum, Flame, and a few other guys, we out in the club, cause Duke is laying low, Farrago's laying low, you know what I mean? Cause Duke is too well known in the city. Farrago's the boss, so he gotta be out of sight, out of mind. So me, Flame, and Platinum and the rest of the crew, we still going hard, still getting money. So we decided to go out to a club. So somehow we at the club, we chilling. You know what I mean? This chick was showing love to us, you know what I mean? She, being flirty and shit. Then her man walks up, and he's mad at her because she talking to us, so he's getting, kind of rowdy with her. We like, yo, homie, chill, like, he's being aggressive. So he's like, yo, know what the fuck? I'm like, my man, relax, So then a couple other niggas walk up. So the nigga kept saying, he was like, nigga, you ain't from here. He kept telling me and Platinum and Flame. He's like, y'all niggas ain't from here. He was like, nigga, I'm from Dallas, nigga, born and raised. Nigga, I'm from South Dallas. He kept speaking to South Dallas. And then, he grabbing the girl. So then, so I walk behind him. I'm like, yo, I'm trying to talk to him. He's like, nigga, I'm from South Dallas, motherfucker. He was like, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit, that New York shit. Fuck that. So, I looked at Platinum again. So I'm still trying to reason with this guy. And he said, I'm from South Dallas, nigga. And I just said, fuck it. Punched him in his face. Boom. Caught the nigga. Boom. So now, me, Platinum, and Flame, we stomping this nigga out. This nigga had a couple other niggas when them niggas came. So now we all brawling. We fighting. Security breaks us up. Throw us out the club. The police come. So now we all handcuffed sitting on the sidewalk. So the guy that I punched in his face, his eyes swollen. So he asked, detective asked him, he was like, yo, which one of these dudes hit you? The cop asked him which one of these dudes hit you. Now, I'm gonna keep it real. The homie kept it real. He was like, yo, I don't see him. He ain't here. So he was like, he ain't here. But I ain't know that these are the same cops that's investigating us. So he was like, he ain't here. So that's when Flame was like, yeah, so if he's saying that he don't see the guy that hit him, obviously you gotta let us go, man. So then that's when the cop was like, alright. So he uncuffed the guy with the black eye, told him to leave, and his friends, they left. Then he uncuffed me, Platinum, Flame, a couple of other niggas. Uncuffed us. So that's when he looked at me and he was like, don't worry. He said, we be seeing you real soon, Tony. So I'm like, oh shit. So that's when they got in the car, the cops, and they drove off. So that's when we like, yo, man, it's getting hot. I was like, yo, we might have to, really try to, lay low, fall back, you know what I'm saying? Try not to make it too hot in these streets, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You got motherfuckers following you. That's what I told Platinum. I was like, the cops following you. This motherfucking cop know my name and shit, you know, and I ain't even tell him my name, you know. We getting into fights at the club. We gonna have to lay low and just chill. You know what I mean? Let the workers handle that, you know what I mean? You know, but we like, alright, so I was like, yo, let's just go hard with the music for, you know, until this shit blow over. So, you know, we in the studio, working on music, you know, Platinum Flame, they working on music. So, we was like, yo, man, we worked on a couple songs. We was like, yo, maybe we should shoot a music video, you know, cause it's like we couldn't really go hard like we want to. We still getting money in the street, you know what I mean, cause of what the wise man told us, but we still trying to keep a low profile. So I'm like, yo, let's shoot a music video, you know what I mean? So we decided to shoot a video for this song called Demons. You know, Platinum had a song called Demons, you know, with his homeboy Sauceway or whatever. So, you know, we picked out a spot out in Dallas, like this block or whatever, because we was gonna have a bunch of cars out there, all kinds of cars, you know, Dodge Chargers, BMWs, Benzes. You know, of course, Platinum was gonna have his red Ferrari out there. You know, I had my white BM was still in the shop, so I had another car. You know what I mean? You know, I bought out, you know, the black Lambo I had. You know, just all the cars. You know what I mean? So we shooting the video. Video's going good. You know what I mean? Couple of, you know, Platinum's homeboys from New Orleans came up. You know what I mean? Sauceway was out there, you know, you can look the video up, it's called Demons, you know what I mean, with Platinum and Sauceway. So we out there, niggas is doing donuts, you know what I mean, in the middle of the street. And then, you know, niggas and cost niggas is strapped, you know what I mean, so we know we just shooting the video, you know, chilling, you know what I mean, trying to, you know, stay low, you know what I mean, the location it wasn't a lot of people out there, it was just us, basically, and like some traffic, like on the other side, and, you know, a lot of the stores was closed and shit, you know what I mean, because we was shooting on a Sunday, so that's why when you see the video, you see the gates down on the stores and shit. So we keep it a low profile shooting the video. So as we, you know, finish shooting the video, we just standing around chilling, you know, niggas is talking, trying to see what the next move we gonna make that day, you know what I mean, because nobody basically wanted to go in, because, you know, Platinum got his people up there, we just shot a music video. We hype. Next thing you know, this all black, you know, Dodge Charger pulls up. So we thinking, you know, is somebody coming to be in the video, Dodge Charger pull up, window roll down. Next thing you know, I see a big black arm come out, and a nigga with a Pooh Shiesty mask, ski mask, you know, on, sticks his arm out. And I'm like, oh shit, and so I yell gun. Nigga starts firing, pop, 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 so everybody's ducking, pop, 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 pop. Nigga ducking. Nigga steps on the gas, drives off. So I pull my gun, I run, I'm like, shit, so I run to the car, you know, Platinum's homeboy, you know, was behind the wheel. This, you know, he was in like this all Dodge Charger, you know what I mean, red joint. So I hopped in the passenger seat, Flame jumped in the back. So I'm like, yo, I'm telling Platinum homeboy, go, 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 go. So he drives. Boom. So he driving. So I'm like, yo, catch up to that nigga. So we trying to catch this nigga. Now mind you, this nigga has a block head start, you know what I mean? So it's like every time he would hit a corner, you know, he'd drive, like say we hit a corner, he already up to the next corner. So it was like he was a block ahead. So I'm telling this nigga, you know, drive. So we driving, we both, the guy in front of us had to been going at least 80 miles per hour. We going about 85, just speeding down the street. So, and the whole time I'm praying that no kids or old ladies run out in the street, because we wasn't stopping. We just trying to catch this car. So we speeding down the street, just zoom, just speeding. You know, Flame's in the back seat, I'm in the passenger. So we see the nigga. He makes it right. Boom, he makes it right. So then by the time we get to the corner, we like, damn, so we don't know if he went right or left. So I'm like, fuck it, go left. So we went left. And we seen him again, and then once he hit that right, and then when we got there, he was gone. So we like, fuck. So we circled the block like two, three times. couldn't find him. We like, fuck, where the fuck this nigga go? So that's when Flame said, yo, he said, we gotta go back, twin, niggas might need us. So we go back to the video shoot, we hop out, everybody's eyes, no shooting, nobody shot. So we like, fuck. So we like, yo, who the fuck, coulda did that? So we don't know who did that, you know what I'm saying? So we like, yo, so everybody, we all hurried up and got out of there. Before, the cops or anybody pull up or anybody call the police so we get up out of there. So one day we chilling, in the studio, in the game room spot, the little spot I used to have in Dallas where we would chill, watch TV, play games, and work on music, we chilling. Next thing you know, I get a notification, somebody sent me that, Big Lack, just shot a new music video, so we watching the video. And as we watching, Big Lack's new music video, he's saying stuff in the lyrics about the shooting at the end. I'm like, how would he know? So that's when we knew Lack has something to do with the shooting. So I'm like, alright. So, we like, okay, cool. So, that's how our beef started, but we couldn't really get at Lack yet because, like I said, we under investigation and shit. So, boom. So Farrago calls me, you know what I mean, and tell me to meet up with him. So I meet up with him, you know what I mean, in the park, you know what I mean, on the other side of town, like way out. So he said he got word that they're gonna be striking, they're gonna be hitting up all the spots on this day. So he was like, he said he don't know, he said he hearing on this day, but he said it could be any day, you know what I mean? But he was like, just be on point, but he was like, be at the spot so that way y'all could lower the feds in. And then, once y'all get rid of the evidence, they most likely gonna shut down, So cool. So me, Platinum Flame, we all making sure we at the spot every day, hustling, you know what I mean? And, we got two niggas upstairs with the fish tank and then, so we chillin'. And then sure enough, one day we chillin', the feds come, they come. So once I seen them pulling up, I take off running. I run one way, Platinum runs the other way, Flame runs in the building. He runs back in the house, I guess to let the niggas know, yo, Fizz, 5050, he let them know. So I'm running. So as I'm running down the street, I hear somebody say, oh yeah. So when I look back, it's this buff-ass white nigga look like Goldberg. Remember Goldberg, the wrestler? He got on a bulletproof vest, no shirt, black combat army boots, black pants, and he chicks it behind me. I'm like, oh shit, so... And it's like no matter how fast I ran, every time I turned around, this motherfucker was getting closer. So I'm running next thing you know, this nigga football, he jumps in, football tackles me down, boom, hit me with the spear, like remember how Goldberg used to hit niggas with the spear, he tackles me down, fuck. No, I thought this motherfucker broke my back the way he jumped on me, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, fuck. So they tackled me, they handcuffed me, him and this other cop, then they pat me down, I ain't got nothing on me. So they walking me back to the motherfucking trap house where we would hustle on that. They walking Flame, they walking Platinum back, they walking him, he's handcuffed, And then, Flame is coming down, Cause they caught Flame at the steps, they handcuff him. So, and it's like soon as they've set me and Platinum down and Flame down on the steps, we hear a loud crash, like a loud crash, like you hear like this big crash of glass. So, soon as that happened, that's when one of the white cops was like, what the fuck was that? You're like, what the fuck was that? So then that's when me, Platinum and Flame, we just start busting out laughing, I'm laughing, Platinum laughing, Flame laughing, cause we know, homie upstairs got rid of the evidence, he most likely threw the keys. And the fish tank poured the acid in there, threw it out the window. So we just laughing. So that's when the white cop said, yo, he said, because by this time Detective Barnes is walking up. So the white cop said to Detective Barnes, he's like, yo, these boys selling the dope or using it, because what's going on? So we just laughing. So next thing you know, they bring homie downstairs and threw shit out the window, but there's no evidence. So they're like, where the fuck is the dope? Where's the guns? Where's the gun? We like, what dope? What guns? So So they patting us down, you know what I mean? So they're like, alright. So they put us in the back of the car, but we knew they had nothing. But what they did was, once they got us to the precinct, they started, we all still handcuffed. Mind you, they put us in the back of the light, this big ass truck, you know what I mean? This big ass truck. They put me, Platinum Flame in there. And they put like 2 white cops and the Goldberg looking cop in there with us. So as they pull over, they beating us with the nightstick, beating us, telling us we're the dope, beating us, we screaming, they hitting us in the ribs with the nightstick, fucking us up in the back of the car. And they driving roughs. So, the cops, they able to hold on to the straps. We've bouncing all around handcuffed. They beating us with the nightstick like motherfucker. They beating us because they knew they had no evidence because they ain't find no dope or guns in the house. So they beating us. So they take us in and they held us, for a couple of days. And, until we all made bail. And then, we went to court and, the judge threw it out because there's no evidence, because they, because homie that we paid, threw the shit out the window with the assets. So we was in the clear, so we beat our case, and that was just like a real crazy time, man. Where they was on us, you know what I mean? Of course, they kept coming at us, but, that was a time where they really came at us, that whole Operation 214 shit, and, and from there, that's when our war with LAP started, which we'll get into some other time, man, but, yeah, that shit was crazy, you know what I mean? But definitely shout out to the whole Dallas, man. You know what I mean? The whole 214.